Let me be precise today because words matter. Now, there are three terms being used to describe the same political reality operating out of the state of Israel. And depending on who's in the room or who's running the algorithm, you hear one, two, or none of them. Let's define all three, and let's just see where that takes us. Term one, Zionism. Zionism is a political movement. That's it. Founded in the late 19th century, the stated goal, establish a Jewish homeland in Palestine. That's the origin story. But here's what it became in practice. A settler colonial project that required the displacement, dispossession, and in many cases the destruction of the people already living there. Not a side effect, a feature. So when people say, I support Israel's right to exist, what they're actually defending, whether they know it or not, is the right of a political movement to have taken land that belonged to someone else and called it a nation state. Zionism is the doctrine. Israel is the product. Term two, Israeli state policy. Let's stay out of South Africa for a moment. I'm not asking you to make a comparison. I'm asking you to look at what is written, what is law, what is policy right now in Israel. In 2018, the Israeli government passed a nation-state law, official legislation on the books. It declared Israel the historic homeland of the Jewish people. It established that the right to national self-determination in the state of Israel is unique to the Jewish people. Not citizens, not residents. The Jewish people. Which means if you're Arab, Druze, Bedouin, Christian, or Palestinian, born on that soil, holding that passport, the state has written into its foundational law that your right to self-determination is subordinate by design, by legislation, not by accident, not by circumstance, by policy. Then look at the land registry system. Jewish communities can restrict residency. Palestinian families cannot return to land their grandparents owned before 1948. Demolition orders disproportionately target Arab structures. Movement through the West Bank requires permits that Jewish settlers do not need. This is not a conflict. This is administration. Now, after you've seen the policy, let me tell you what the experts call it. B'Tselem, Israel's own leading human rights organization, not a foreign critic, not an outside agitator, one of theirs. They reviewed the policy architecture and reached a conclusion. They called it apartheid. Human Rights Watch called it apartheid. Amnesty International called it apartheid. The United Nations called it apartheid. I didn't reach for that word. I followed the evidence to where they were already standing. So when you hear apartheid in this conversation, understand that word is not a comparison to South Africa. It is a legal designation for a specific type of governance, a system where law determines rights based on ethnic or racial identity. Israel didn't invent it, but they perfected their own version of it, and they wrote it down. Term three, Jewish supremacy. Now, this is the one that makes people uncomfortable, and I want to tell you exactly how it came to my attention. Norman Finkelstein, Jewish scholar, son of Holocaust survivors, Princeton doctorate, a man who has paid a considerable professional price for saying what he believes is true. One of you gave me this term, and I found that to be an interesting authorization. Finkelstein called Israel the Jewish supremacist state. He concluded that Israel is organized around the principle that Jewish citizens hold categorically superior standing to non-Jewish citizens, not just in practice, in law, in doctrine, in the founding architecture of the state itself. He wrote that it perpetuates a state based on racial supremacy, that Israel's notion of Jewishness, the determinant of who holds sovereignty, is ultimately biological, based on kinship, not on citizenship, not on residency, on bloodline. That's not Keith speaking. That's Norman Finkelstein, Princeton, 2021. And he went further. He said supporters of Palestinian rights should say it plainly. At every opportunity, Israel, which is a Jewish supremacist state. He said if challenged, the reply is simple. One of Israel's own leading human rights organizations has concluded that Israel is organized around the principle of Jewish supremacy. Again, not me, him. Now let's land this plane. 3 terms, 3 entry points, 1 destination. Zionism is the movement. Israel state policy is the system. Jewish supremacy is the ideology holding both in place. You can argue about the label. You can say, that's too harsh. You can call it anti-Semitic, even though a Jewish scholar coined the phrase and an Israeli human rights organization handed him the evidence. But here's what you cannot do. You cannot change what it is by changing what we call it. The doctrine is the doctrine. The law is the law. The displacement is the displacement. The bodies are the bodies. And no matter how it's cloaked, it is what it is. I'm Keith. Words matter. Actions matter. And all people have the right to exist, not nation states. People. Use your voice. Keith speaks.